And welcome of Connecting Online for 2017 CO17. You are very courageous for coming to so many live online sessions for CO17. And you're getting badges, which is absolutely amazing because I added what you can do with those badges. And apparently you can do a lot because badges are becoming the thing of the future. And it's not going to be certificates, it's going to be badges. So there's information on the sessions for today, as well as the discussion forums. Our speaker for this session is Rob Howard. Rob, are you in the house? I believe you are because somebody moved the the PowerPoint, and it wasn't me. So Rob is here. Great. All right. So talk to you. All right. So hi, Rob, and welcome. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. It looks like a hotel room somewhere around the world. Yep. And we're going to be
Um,
guessing. Where
yep.
are you?
I'm currently in,
I don't see any
well,
mountains
let's
from
see.
here.
I'm
I only see
surrounded by
curtains.
mountains, and I know it's a really, really funky hotel. Um,
Oh,
if I turn
I
this
don't see the
around
mountains, but I
perfectly, you won't
certainly
be able to
see
see
the
much.
tops of buildings. So you must be higher than most. All right, so that's good. Okay, so a little bit
Yeah.
about our speaker,
So
who you seem to be
yeah,
very sunny there. Your Zurich, your face
I'm in Zurich.
looks very sunny. You look like you're blonde, actually. Have you turned white? Is that what I see there? Nah. All right.
No,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All
no,
right.
it's
But
the
it's
way the
good. It's
light.
good.
I can't control the light here at all.
No, that's okay. It looks
I'll have to
interesting.
do up a
All right, so a
detailed
little bit about
description.
Rob. I'm not sure that this is current, but a little bit about Rob. He is originally from Boston.
Different. So I'm not sure about
Okay, so let
my
me speak quickly
internet
and
connection
introduce
here.
you. So a little bit about
So
Rob. I'm
if
going to
it's
introduce
okay
you
for
real
you.
fast. Okay, I don't know if you can hear me, but real quick. All right, so Rob is originally from Boston. He was living in Rio de Janeiro for ages, I think about 15 years. And then he moved last year to Poland. He's now living in Poland, but he travels a lot in the United States, in South America, in the Far East, and currently in Europe. So he's in Austria, I believe, or Germany, in one of those countries, European countries. He's a teacher, tutor, teacher trainer, material designer, writer, speaker, and a great person. I think that's the most important part. He's the founder of EFL Talks, which you'll hear about, and you can Google it, EFL Talks, and join as a speaker or learn and be a speaker at the same time. And he's going to be talking about perfect. Okay, so the perfect tense or presenting perfectly. So there's his presentation, and I'm going to put myself in the background. If you have any questions, the chat box for
Okay.
anything, and copy it at the end.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Nellie. And sorry, because I'm traveling here, I'm, with hotel Wi-Fi and internet, so I'm not sure if there's any cutting out, but I'm just going to go through and do it. So, hello, it's not so sunny. I'm here today in Zurich. I spent the morning in Bern and traveling around Switzerland right now with a friend of mine. And what I want to talk today about is presenting perfectly. And as Nellie mentioned, I founded EFL Talks 2 years ago. And This has given me an opportunity to see a lot of people. Too low? Okay. This has given me the opportunity to see a lot of people present. And I've been traveling around Europe going to a lot of different presentations. And I've seen a lot of very important people, very knowledgeable people, very friendly people give presentations. But you wouldn't know that they were the professionals they are because of some basic mistakes that people are making with technology. And let me get into it. We're going to go quickly here. I've got a lot of slides, but I want you to think back. First of all, this is my little disclaimer. Everything that I did here, I did only using PowerPoint and Paint. Now, I'm a PC person. Nellie's an Apple person. And I'm not saying that you have to use just these basic ones. But I wanted to stay very, very basic because I want to show you you can do exactly what needs to be done with just basic programs. And that's why I'm bare bones here. Now, think back. I don't know where everybody's from. I don't know the ages of everybody, but I'm kind of ancient. And remember when we used to have flashcards? Ah, Cheryl's here. Okay, Cheryl, you must remember this. Not to say you're old. Sorry. But remember flashcards. The teacher would hold up one flashcard, and we'd do 2 by 7, and we'd give an answer. Remember the old days? Very simple. So why the heck are we putting this on the board now? Ever since we've come across digital with digital whiteboards or PowerPoint or giving presentations, we suddenly feel that we have to fill up the screen. So rather than just putting a simple 2 times 7 equals, we're throwing up all these different things at the same time. Now, if you're a student learning math, are you going to get this? No, because you've got 4 different things here. There's too much information. Exactly, Nellie. And this is what we're doing. The old days. Simple. E equals mc squared. And this is apropos because I just went this morning to Albert Einstein's apartment in Bern. So I feel so Einsteinish. And this is what we used to teach. How are we teaching now? Wait for the slide to go. You'll see on the next slide. Thumbs up. What we're doing is we're filling the screen with too much information. And there's my slide. Okay, this is what we put on the board now. Exactly. We have an overload of information. And, look at, oops, you see, we have pop-ups now. Everything with the computer. Everything is pop-up of information for us. And, well, there's sometimes never too much sex. But everything is pop-up of information. And we as teachers are taking this on and doing the same thing, which we need to stop because we're actually doing a disservice to our students. Okay? And not moving ahead. Hang on. Let me load it. Okay. Let's see if this will load a little faster. Nellie, I don't know if it's me or it's just the slides, but I can't get to slide 8. Could you move it for me, please? I know it's heavy, but, oh, okay, well, I'm not seeing, all right. So slide 8, look at this information, all this information that's coming through. There's too much on the internet, on the board, and we as teachers TV now. On the news programs, there's so many pop-ups that are going on, and you can't even see the original news story anymore. So on the next slide, if you can see it, slide 10, we're having sensory overload. And what's happening is just too okay, good. You see slide 18. You know, where is learning? And if we can go to the next slide, slide 19, there's learning, plain and simple. And this is the whole idea of what I'd like to talk about, if I can get through this. And if need be, we can reschedule it and we'll redo it, because I'd really like, this is an important subject, I think. And what's happening is we need to go back to basics. Even though we have a nice, beautiful digital board and we have great programs, what we need to do is get back to basics. No voice? All right, now let me come in with the phone. Nellie, can you do me a favor? Can you send me the presenter's link on the private message? I can get it quicker. And then I'll come in on the phone. All right, Nellie, if you could move the slides for me, please, because I can't. It's too small. We need to go back to simplicity. And of course, if you look at the basic graphic here, effectiveness will increase as we simplify. Next slide. And take a look at this. This is beautiful. I got this online. Looks lovely. Something you'd love to use for your classroom with young learners. And we're learning what? Bookworm. But now think about it. Think about a young child who's now looking at this page, and you want them to learn bookworm. They're seeing too many images, even though they're beautiful and they're cute. Next slide. What we should be going to is back to one simple picture, one simple word. Excuse me. Next. And keep things so they're not confusing for the student. Next one. We're going fast here, Nellie. Keep up with me. So let's bring things back to one simple image and one or two words. Okay, let's go ahead to the next one. After all, next one. Repetition. Is it good or bad? You know, as teachers for years now, we've gotten away from drilling. We're getting away from repetition because we think it's boring, but really, repetition is good. This is how the students learn. Next. So we need to do away with all the distractions that we are putting on the screen. And let's go, we're going to lose some of my animation. Okay, let's skip ahead to the next. And I think my animation is gone here. But for example, if we take a look at the next slide, we'll see, well, you see the ball. The animation I had here was the ball was bouncing up and down. And we do this because it's so easy to do. That's okay, you can go to the next one now. Animation, we need to take the animation out of the PowerPoint. We need to take it off of the whiteboard software because it distracts them, and instead of thinking the word animation, they're thinking about how the animation was done. If we go to the next one, these transitions that people put in, which you won't see on here. If you saw this live, you would see the transition that I make. We have a nice flying in transition. They're actually distracting to students, and it brings them away from the actual visual you're trying to find. Next. And I'll get a lot of arguments with this, but stay away from Prezi. This movement and flying around the world on the screen is extremely bad to get people's attention. Prezi, people stop using this in business after about 1 year in the United States because they realized that all they were doing were making flying slides and nobody was following it. So stay away from Prezi. Next, please. It's overkill. If I'm trying to show the picture of a window, I don't need to show the whole building. Okay? Next. Let's talk about brainstorming. This was, I kind of redid something that somebody I know did. This was something about brainstorming. Yeah, beautiful pictures. There you have ideas, you have Post-it notes flying around, everything. You got the Wordle. There's too much on this screen, and my point that I'm trying to make is brainstorming. So let's pick one picture, and let's pick 1 or 2 key phrases. Next. You know, here's Wordle. Here's a typical classroom. I'm going to show this Wordle. Next. Next slide. Okay. How many of the words did you see there? What was the main word that I was trying to work on? Too much information. Okay, here's a quick quotation from a famous writer. It's perhaps better, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. Basically, what's happening is we put long quotations, long texts on the screen, and then I would say at least 70% of presenters read the screen. I can read the screen myself. You can read the screen yourself. You don't put this in a presentation. It's too much information. And you're going to see it all the time. Next, please. So how do you feel when you see a presentation with a long quotation that somebody's written? I know I did this presentation much better because everything worked in Malta at an image conference. And right after my presentation came a person who did a presentation with everything that I said that was wrong. She read long quotations, large text, too many pictures. I wanted to cry. I apologized afterwards. But the entire audience and her said, that was perfect because we just saw exactly what you're saying. And it's too much. We need to rethink. Next one. Get to the point. And this is one of my favorite slides. It's one of the reasons I started EFL Talks was for people to start getting to the point quickly. Next. So you notice what I'm doing here is I'm using a lot of slides with very little information and going very quickly. The funny thing is, I've tested this over and over with some different audiences. You're actually remembering things more than if I put this all on one screen. Next. Okay. This next one. Take a look at this quickly. All right, next. All right, can anybody type what was on the last slide? Don't go forward, Nellie. Keep it where it is. Type in the chat room a couple of things you saw. Okay, good. We got giraffe, zoo, no. A tall giraffe, no, no. Good. A sleeping monkey, an elephant. Good. Okay, so some of you got some of the ideas. All right, now next slide. Let's do this. Take a look again. Okay, now the next slide. The next slide. The next slide. The next slide. Okay, now type again what you saw. Here we go. You see, I'm seeing it. A very tall giraffe, an anxious elephant. I'm seeing the adjectives. There we go. Okay? Do you see the point that I'm making? If I put the four together and you had the same amount of time just putting the words, you miss the adjectives. Putting the pictures and showing the words separately, you took everything in much better. Okay? And the point was to get the adjectives. Understand? This is the point I'm trying to make. All right, let's take a quick look at some bad stuff. If you could go ahead, Nellie, to the next one. All right, we're going to take a look at some bad slides. Hopefully, I didn't copy anybody who's here. Next one. This was one that I saw. Too much information. Are you going to read this? This is something I don't even know because I'm not going to bother reading it. It's too long. This was done as part of somebody's research and giving a demonstration about their research. I don't need to see all this. One main point and then talk about it. Next. It got even worse. This is the next slide she put up. Who is going to read this and even bother taking a picture of it? Next. Okay. I've seen slides like this. Look at this. This is horrible. I can't read anything. I can't make out what the images are. I'd need 10 minutes with this slide on the screen to get through it with the class. Too much. Next. Misuse of color, bolding, impact fonts. There's everything here. Everything thrown in with a cute little cat. But what do you actually see? Nothing. You see the cat and maybe in red. That's what you're going to walk away with from this slide. No other information. Next. We'll go quickly through these. These are things that you see on the internet. Too much. Next. Too much. This is engineering. I'm going to be talking to engineers. Next. Yep. Okay, next one. And here's what we do as teachers. Now, we're giving out the homework. We're trying to get them engaged and to get the idea. What do these pictures on the right have to do with anything about the homework? So while kids are looking at these pictures, they miss the homework assignment. And we're doing this as teachers. It needs to stop. Next. Here, I'm doing this for engineers. Plain simple. This is an engineering flowchart. Basically, I can look at this, and within 30 seconds, I get the point. Because it's very basic, it's very clean, it's very neat. Okay? Engineers will get this quicker. They're used to this one. It's how to fix things. Next. Here's one that I made, a daily routine flowchart. You see, are you ready to get up? The alarm rings. If we want to delay, we hit the snooze. If we want to get up, we climb out of bed and get on with life. Notice, very basic. I didn't overuse color, not too many words, and this is something I would probably leave on the screen for probably 2 to 3 minutes because we'd be talking about the routine and the flow. But again, the graphic is very simple, and this is what we need to stick to. Skip ahead. Let's go 2. Another thing that I talk about is ironic. We can skip to the next. Okay. All right. This one, you're not seeing the same as me. The red came out. This was a slide. Too much information. I'm trying to teach ironic. And here's, from Merriam-Webster Dictionary, I took the information, and it's all good information, but it's all on one screen. Next, let's break it up. Let people look at it and take everything on that screen, break it into 4 screens so they can take each screen and process the information before we move on. Okay? So the next slide, I put in something funny. Again, something short in a basic picture. But you notice, it's a clear white background, it's simple, and you get the point quickly. Next one. So I'm back to Merriam-Webster. Here's another definition from Webster. Something that's funny because of the situation is different from what you'd expect. Okay, next slide. A simple picture. I love it. How to save paper with explanations using lots of paper. But one image set this definition into your head. Next. Here's the examples from Merriam-Webster. Computers break down, but they're meant to save us time. This computer didn't save me time. Next. The slide basically speaks for itself. This is the idea. Let a few words in a picture do the speaking and get through to the student. Next, let's talk a little bit about color. And by the way, most of the pictures here, almost everything here, these I photographed myself. So, because I don't like to pay royalties and I don't like to put things. So these are my pictures. The advantage of traveling a lot. Let's talk a little bit about color and the effect of color. Next one, please. Okay, you may have seen this before. This is the color wheel, and it's an emotion color wheel. And different colors do different things and bring out different reactions to us. So, but this, even in itself, as a slide, there's too much information. So here, again, I've taken the important information there, and I made this slide, which simplifies the difference from the color and the reaction. On the next slide, Nellie. Sorry, great. So you see that each color has its own feel to it, but it's much easier to read this way. And this only took me 2 minutes to make this slide. And you'll notice the interaction of color. For instance, I've used black for most of the lettering, but with certain background colors, I need to change to get more contrast so people can see. Okay? So think about this when you're making your slides in your presentation. Next, some of this, it's generalization. I want to talk about, you have to think about the surroundings. Obviously here we're online, so I know what I'm up against. But sometimes you may go with a light theme or a dark theme, and this is going to be based on the lighting or the room that you may be working with. And you have to be aware of that, whether it be in the classroom or a professional presentation. Next. And you'll notice here some of the choices of colors. You know, they look bad. You can see good, the two goods stand out, there's good contrast, but look when you get to the yellow and the white lettering, you can't read anything. And I see these all the time in presentations. So stick with some of the basic colors so you get that contrast in there. Next. This slide I love, it's on the internet. I really hope in the future that none of you ever have problems with loss of bladder control due to any of my presentations. Okay, next. This is a slide I took off. This is a beautiful slide, and it's almost perfect except for one thing. Anybody see what it is? There's one basic problem with this slide. Japan, exactly. And in every live room that I've showed this slide, you can't even see Japan 13%. So, you know, minor details make a big difference. Thank you, Nellie. That's great. Next one. Fonts. As teachers and as presenters, next one, Nellie. Try and stick with the sans serif fonts. These are the basic fonts, Havelica, Verdana, Arial. You'll see these because they're much easier to read, number one, at a distance, number two, when you're talking about reading it on the screen. So stick with these basic professional fonts. There are a few exceptions. I've seen some nice stuff done with the chalk writing. There's a couple of teachers' chalk writing fonts that are available, which are very good and very legible. But other than that, stick with basic. Don't go with these funny ones, the chiller ones, unless the font really makes the difference. Next, I'll go through these quick. Remember, every detail in the presentation, whether it be a presentation or a presentation to your students, makes a difference. Think of EDM. It's every detail matters. Notice, nice, clear, easy to read slide. Next one, Nellie. I didn't do it. It changed the font. This one I actually use like an old English font, and it actually looks like it says Cherry Bacal Mothers. It didn't, WizIQ converted it. But even the colors, the green on green looks terrible. Next. And contrary to popular belief, size does matter. I'm sorry. Next slide, please. I made one of these years ago for myself, and I always use this particular slide when I'm putting together a presentation or anything for the class. Notice what I did is just put this as Arial, and I put the font number next to it, and you're looking at the actual size. And then use this and take a look at the screen where you're going to be presenting in classroom, or if it's going to be on the computer, and see what the appropriate size should be. This is a great little tool, and I like it. You can make this yourself very easily. And, you know, save yourself a PowerPoint and keep this there so you can decide. The minimal you should use for text is 32. I don't know. Can everybody read 32 easily with what you're using? I can on my phone. Good. But when we look at the smaller ones, it becomes much more difficult. So usually for the main point that I want to make, I'll use around 66. If I need to put a heading, 48's a nice size, but you use what's good for you. Okay, next one. And conditions. Okay, here's some things, 2 presentations that I've done. Actually, I didn't do the one on the right. This is Braz Teasel, which is in a huge gymnasium. Okay, on the next slide, Nellie. Did it go? There we go. I'm sorry. On the right, this is a huge gymnasium in Brazil where we had a conference. So you're talking holding, I believe it was about 1,000 people. On the left is a presentation I made, and this is a small, very intimate auditorium, which holds about 100. Now, the size of the room will make a difference on what you do on the screen for either the presentation or the class. Next. Also be aware of the lighting. On the left, this is what I had in Birmingham. It was a very dark room, so it was difficult to see. Here on the right, in Brazil, I was in a well-lit room, so if I had a very light screen with light colors, they wouldn't show up. So you need to be aware of the surroundings. Next one. Be aware of the seating. Here's a typical classroom. This is at the university that I hang out at in Poland. This might be your typical classroom. So you notice how far back the people are from the screen. The size of the lettering is going to have to be much larger for this particular room. Okay? And on the right, you'll see in this large auditorium that it was good, appropriate size for the letters. Next. The screen. Be aware of the screen that you're using if you're doing a presentation. This is one we showed up for a conference, and they had 32-inch televisions. Fortunately for me, that particular slide presentation was big, so it was easy for people to see. But I sat through many of people's presentations. You could not read anything on the screen because it was too small. So you need to be aware of what you're going to be presenting on beforehand. Here on the right, I found out I was going to have a big screen, so I could work appropriately with that. Next one. This is something relatively new that, I knew existed but never thought about. And Nellie, I'm going to ask you this one later because I'm not sure. For a PC with PowerPoint, the normal default is 16 by 9. Now that means the size. This is the white. If you imagine the entire screen white, this is a 16:9 ratio. Now the other ratio that's popular is 4:3, and that's the blue section here. Now many projectors, and many times when you bring a presentation and you bring it on a flash drive, you might find that your presentation is chopped because you made it in 16 by 9, but the system only allows for 4:3. Nellie, do you know offhand if it's 4:3 is default in Apple, or is it 16 by 9? Because I don't know. And it's 16 by 9 is default. Okay, great. Yeah, many conferences I've been going to, and if people don't know the audio-visual part, the default for projectors is 4:3. So you're going to cut off a lot of information. So be aware of this.
If you don't understand what I'm talking about, find out about this now. Okay, next slide. Okay, let's skip to the next one. I'm going to go quickly here. I don't even know what the time is. Okay. This is the thing. Your goal should be to show ideas, not just slides. You want each slide to be meaningful and to show good information. Next one. The next thing, if you're working as a teacher or a presenter, please learn one thing. This is something called embedding. Now, I can't do it here because WizIQ doesn't allow for embedding, but we're going to try and make this happen. Normally what you see at a presentation, if you follow from the bottom, next slide. If you follow from the bottom, somebody's doing the presentation, then they want to show you a video. So they exit the presentation, you see their main screen, then they have to fumble, go to YouTube, play you the video, then they fumble, they go back, and then they come back to the presentation finally. You don't need to do this. You can embed your video, we can't do it here, into the PowerPoint like I have here. Okay? So that means, if you go back one, Nellie, do you have the media up?
Over time, you've got 100 slides. So
okay, all right, go next.
Okay.
So if you're using a picture and you need to put words, this shape fill backdrop that I put here makes it very easy to stand out. So next slide. We'll go quickly here. Simplistic. This looks nice. It's clean. Next. If you want to add a little color, it's still simplistic. Next one. Here's some numbers. 30 infographics. People are most likely to read the infographic rather than the text. So put graphics. Next. 50% of our brain is wired for visuals. Take advantage of a good visual to make your point. Next. 60,000 visuals are processed faster. Okay? We do visuals better. Next. The problem with it is what people are seeing. And what we're finding now is, if you look at court cases, 78% of eyewitness testimony is being overturned. Next one. Can you trust what you see? What are you seeing here? Okay. So we always say that we think that the brain is acting as a funnel, just putting information in. I disagree. I think the brain is acting as a filter and only taking what we can understand and process. So we want to get rid of this black hole of learning. Next. And we want to reach this happy point in the middle where a good presenter is using a good presentation. And I'm done. So now questions.